The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are world famous, and we recently told you the story of Last Ronin, which told you the end of the turtles' lifespan. But how did Michelangelo go from being the last turtle remaining to getting overtrained in everything that he's doing, and then returning to do that final battle? Well, that's the story that is explored in Last Ronin Lost Years, and today we're going to be bringing you that right here at Comicstorian Full Story. After the passing of Michelangelo, after the final battle with Oroku Hiroto, the young Casey Marie thought that she should keep Mikey's legacy alive by training the next generation of turtles based off of Master Splinter's old journal. She soon learns that trying to keep 4 adolescent turtles to pay attention is a bit harder than it seems. While Yi and her brother Odin are in a headlock, Odin struggles, stating that his tummy hurts, and his other sister, Moja, says that he's always hungry. Their fourth brother, Uno, then says that Odin is a fatty and that's why. Moja tells him that that's not nice. Take it back. The four continue to bicker with one another, and as things start to get out of hand, April walks in stating that now is a good time for a timeout. Seeing how the children listen to April, Casey sighs. She says that she can't begin to fix these kids. And April turns. What's there to fix? They're just babies. And when did training them become something that needed to happen? As I remember it, Michelangelo's last entry was about knowing peace. Casey thinks about that. Maybe, if the fighting would have stopped, but with Hiroto gone, there's a new power struggle in the city. We can't just sit around and wait for something bad to happen. April tells her that that may be true, but she needs to do this in baby steps, especially with babies. She's also pretty sure that there is something in Splinter's old journal about failure. Casey looks at her. Yeah. It says defeat is only real if you let it be real, which, back in the time where the training began, would have been the same for Michelangelo during his time of arriving back in New York. After the loss of Master Splinter and his brothers, he had given up. Everyone had died. This left him with nothing to live for. So he found a large, unforgiving mountain to climb and meet his own end. As he reached an old, broken home, he laid down to die, but his body wouldn't let go. A voice in his head told him that this was not his destiny. By the time spring had arrived, he still had not died, so he figured that he'd get busy surviving, and it seemed like the universe agreed. For 3 years, Michelangelo did feel as though he had found some peace, but as unexpectedly as it had come, the time passed. Some of the locals found their way to his personal shrine and mindlessly attacked him, but Mikey wasn't in any hurry to stop them. Instead, Mikey welcomed the pain, the death to come, and he imagined what his family would say if they were there. Donnie would say something about the irony of these men calling him a monster. Leo would criticize the sloppiness of their attacks, and Raph would probably just say something tough like, "Is that all you got, punks?" Father? What would Father have said? And the words, "Get up, foolish child," ring out in Michelangelo's mind as he's brought back in time to when he was fighting alongside everyone when things looked bleak. He remembered a time when he looked at a mound of bodies piled up at his feet. Splinter told him to get back up. His brothers had nearly broken through the last line of Foot Clan defenders. "Oroku Saki's head and vengeance will soon belong to the Hamato clan. This is what I have trained you all your life for. This moment, now get up and rejoin the fight, Michelangelo!" There was a moment where Mikey said he couldn't, but Splinter told him to hear him well, that this is not his destiny, that he will not leave him here to meet a coward's end. A coward? No. Mikey was no coward. This is not his destiny. It was time to get up and fight. As one of the attackers were about to deliver a final blow, Michelangelo instead grabbed the axe from the man's hand and tore out his stomach. He then looked at the others, calling them cowards, killing just to kill. No respect for life, no honor, no mercy. Years of rage, loneliness, grief, and guilt all began to pour out, and these men never stood a chance. But when it was done, the fatigue set in. From the battle, from his life. This wasn't supposed to be his end. This was not his destiny. This mountain sanctuary, with its false promises of peace and resolution, was never his destiny. No more than fooling himself that he could quit his family's long war against the Foot Clan. Redemption for his family, that's his destiny, to the end. As Michelangelo journeyed back down the mountain, he found the nearby village that he passed through years before had been set ablaze. The people here were poor farmers and shepherds. They were peaceful, hard workers, doing what they could to survive. Who would do something like this? Through the smoke, one of the earlier attackers yells,
"There it is, the monster who attacked us in the hills."
Rage began to set in again. Mikey attacked them? Using all of his brother's weapons, Michelangelo ripped through the raiders, killing any and all that would raise a hand against him. The man who escaped the worst of it before begging him not to hurt him. Michelangelo drove his sword into that man's stomach. There, now I attacked you. And then a weak voice calls out to Mikey, telling him that he needs to go before he returns. Michelangelo ran over to help the wounded man, asking what happened. Who will return? And the old man says, the Death Worm. He is all things evil. Leave now while you still can. You will not survive if you dare face Death Worm's army. Alone. Alone? That word alone caused Michelangelo to pause. But really, when was he ever truly alone? A voice asks, "What's it gonna be, Chucklehead? You just gonna sit there crying like a baby? Or are you gonna do what the old man told you and get moving?" That's when Michelangelo saw the ghosts of his dead brothers at his backside. Back in the present, the 4 new turtle ninjas are in training, going about their duties cleaning the dojo, when suddenly Odin drops his glass to the floor and sighs. Sensei's going to be mad. Yi tells him yeah, because he was supposed to be mopping, not drinking. Odin then asks the others if they can help him clean it up because he's scared of sharp things. Everyone tells him that he needs to do it on their own because they're busy with their own things. Odin begins to cry. Casey Marie steps out asking what's going on, and Odin says that he's sorry, and he asks if she's mad for breaking his cup. She tells him no, but she'd like to tell them a little story. Long ago, when her father worked with the Ninja Turtles, they were sent on an important mission to stop the Foot Clan from stealing things that didn't belong to them. Like always, Leonardo was in charge, and just when he was going to give the orders to grab the bad guys, her father saw something else happening. Some other bad guys were getting ready to be mean to a poor lady. It made her father really mad, and he wanted to help the lady. At first, the Turtles didn't want to go because they were supposed to stop the Foot Clan, but her dad didn't listen and went to help the poor woman anyway. Even though they knew it would mess up their mission, the Turtles followed. The point being that sometimes you can get so caught up in what you're supposed to be doing that we ignore what we should be doing, like helping out one of our teammates when they're in trouble. Yi says, "Wow, Grandpa Casey and the Turtles were so cool. Do you ever miss them, Grammy April?" April laughs. "I do, but sometimes it's just like they're still here." However, we haven't ended Michelangelo's story in the past. His brothers all appeared to him as ghosts, and after leaving the sanctuary in the mountains, he set out to find the leader of the raid group that attacked the small village, the Death Worm. Though he thought it may only take a few days, his search turned into weeks and months and even years. He'd stick to the forest and only travel at night, often having Donnie tell him which plants he should eat and which to avoid. Either that or he just knew after spending years in the mountains already. He wasn't sure anymore. The constant jabbering of his dead companions made it hard to separate the past from the present, reality from delusion. He wasn't sure if he was crazy or concussed, and it didn't seem like they were in any hurry to go away. And as lonely as he was, Michelangelo wasn't in any hurry to let them go. But even still, that didn't stop them from arguing and dredging up his past. After many more months of aimless wandering, Leo asked, what exactly are they doing? Aren't they supposed to be looking for Death Worm? But at this point, Mikey had had enough. He yelled that there isn't any we in this. He is getting ready to go further south as soon as the sun is down, and they are dead. So, Raph asks him, what's that got to do with you hiking your sorry butt all the way down to Japan? Michelangelo shouts, it's got everything to do with everything. I'm here because someone couldn't keep their sai in their pants when Karai ambushed us back then. I'm here because somebody started a war that killed everyone I ever cared about, including yourself. Yeah, maybe I did make a mistake after that ambush. Maybe that mistake started things rolling downhill for us. But we all knew it was coming one way or another. Us against the Foot Clan, like Master Splinter said. He's right, we're dead, and you're not. And neither is Hiroto. He's the last of his family, just like you, which means that you're the only one left to finish what Raph started when he went after Karai.
What are you saying then, Mikey?
Mikey looks at him. I know where I'm going now. Maybe deep down I always knew. It's time to go back to New York City, to stand or fall.
Haha, now you're talking, Mikey!
Am I? Because it's getting harder to tell these days. However, Mikey just couldn't go back, not in his current condition. Leo was right about a few things, and his technique had been getting a little rusty. So Leo suggested that they seek out the secret Hamato clan elite training camp that their father once wrote about, which happened to not be too far away from where he was now. The easiest way there was to take a boat, but being a giant mutant turtle, it wasn't exactly easy to obtain a boat without getting noticed by Deathworm's goons. So Mikey boarded a cruise ship that was bound for Russia through one of Korea's ports. It was smooth sailing until it wasn't. While trying to keep a low profile, Mikey was talking with his brothers when a passenger overheard him and asked, who the hell is he talking to? Of course, it was more of Deathworm's men, and by this time, Deathworm put out a notice to capture Michelangelo for what he did back in the small village. Mikey made short work of them too, but his peaceful trip to the hidden island was cut short, and he was forced to swim the remaining way. The swim to the island was way harder than he expected. It was a miracle that he didn't drown. As Mikey washed up on the shore, he met an old man and his dog, but he was too tired to even respond. After a few days of rest, Mikey wakes up asking where is he, and the old man tells him that generally speaking, he's on Chiburijima Island, specifically in his guest hut. The fine lady accompanying him is Nori, his Shurin, and a very good dog. As for him, he's Master Yip of the Hamato clan, the elite master that he seeks. Mikey says that he doesn't mean to offend, but he is speaking Japanese, but he is. Master Yip says, a Chinese man, yes, and you are a turtle man. Clan Hamato is wonderfully diverse, is it not? Now come outside when you are ready, Michelangelo. We're going to begin your training. Mikey asks him how did he know, and Yip tells him that he's been in and out of consciousness for nearly 2 days, mumbling and moaning all the while. This is how he learned what he is called and what he seeks. Now finish your soup, Michelangelo. Yip then looks to Nori, asking, what does one call soup for a turtle? Nori barks and Yip laughs. Haha, yes, turtle soup. Once Michelangelo is able and ready, it is time for him to begin his training. And as any great training begins, it starts with the art of Shojido, the way of cleaning. Traditionally, students would clean the dojo together, a way of showing respect and a way of giving thanks to their sensei. But being the only student there, it gave Mikey a real workout. But that was only the beginning. After cleaning before weapons training, Michelangelo had to return to the basics, learn to fight without anything but his fists. And as soft of an approach as it seemed, Master Yip would remind Michelangelo that he should not mistake softness for weakness. So the days turned to weeks, the weeks turned into months, and the months turned into a year. And nearly 18 months after beginning his training, it was time for Michelangelo to set back out. But before going, Master Yip wanted to leave Mikey with one last bit of wisdom. He knows Michelangelo's family tragedy, his self-imposed exile into Japan, his flight from the one called Deathworm, and his mission of vengeance against the Foot Clan. One thing that he must know is that his father came here to train. He too held a burning desire for revenge against the enemies of his family, and like him, he made it his life's purpose to see his quest through. But first he must win the battle that he wages within before embarking on a bloody vendetta against others. So with it, he will end things with a question. Can he honorably rush to face one enemy when he fearfully retreated from another? As Mikey left, that question burned within him. It was more like a challenge than a question. Take down Deathworm first, then go after Oroku Horoto. By the time the night fell, Michelangelo managed to row himself to South Korea, or rather, the unified Korean Republic. While gathering information due to his time away, Mikey learned that there was a massive earthquake in China not long ago. The destruction took out a lot of China's nuclear facilities, turning most of the country into an irradiated wasteland. The Chinese government pretty much collapsed overnight, and any control they had over the other nations was lost, starting with North Korea, and the unification of South Korea quickly followed. It was hard to tell where the crime stopped and where the law started. It all seemed to just blend together, which made finding Deathworm all the much more harder. Either nobody knew where he was, or they weren't going to tell him. After weeks of sleeping in alleyways and eating from dumpsters, Mikey decided he had had enough. Deathworm was more of a ghost than his brothers, and if he didn't get some real food in him, he was going to be one soon. So Mikey sold half of his equipment for a few bucks to get himself a hot meal in a warm place where he could sit and think. While bickering with his brothers, he noticed one of the men playing pool had the same tattoo as all of Deathworm's men. He confronted that man, asking, "What does it mean?"
Who are you? The green freak you've been looking for.
Using his newly refined training, Mikey made short work of the men. A broken pool stick here, a crack of the wrist there. But Mikey disarmed the man with the broken beer bottle and he held it to the man's throat.
Where is Deathworm?
And easily enough, he got the answer. Mongolia. After that, Mikey gathered up what gear he had left, borrowed an old wreck, and set out for Mongolia. Leo asked him if he had a plan, and Mikey told him yes. Go there, find Deathworm, take him down, and go for revenge. Good. But really, I just hope that we make it there in one piece. We all know you suck at driving, Mikey. Donnie chimed in. Our story begins in the present day, after the battle of Mikey and Hiroto, current New York. April and Casey are preparing dinner for the new turtles, but Yi comes into the kitchen crying as blood is dripping from her fingers. Oh man, little girl, how'd you manage that? Casey asks as she bends down. I was trying to slice some wires in Grammy's garage, but I slipped and now I'm gonna die, Yi says tearfully, as Casey continues to make dinner. April bandages up Yi's finger and kisses it better, and they all sit down to eat as she tells the children another story from the past, about how she decided she was going to spy on the purple dragons because the rest of them were busy. But she wasn't as skilled as them and was discovered. Luckily, Casey and the turtles arrived to save them. Even though my heart was in the right place, my mind and body weren't quite ready for the job. I still needed help, and that was perfectly okay, April tells the children. But now we go to the past, Mikey's journey to defeat Deathworm, Inner Mongolia. Mikey looks up in shock. The world around him is dark. What's happening? Why is it so dark? I can't see.
But we see you, creature,
a voice calls out. Mikey turns in fear as someone enters and prepares ropes. Leo? Is that you?
There is no Leo here, creature. There is only us,
the voice says. Ropes are suddenly lashed around him as the voice explains that they must proceed with caution. Mikey tries to struggle but is cracked in the back of the head with a rifle and dropped to the ground. Mikey is brought to a cart and carried away, his head swimming as he climbs in and out of consciousness, remembering what brought him to Mongolia. After leaving Korea, Mikey and his brother's spirits arrived in China, which had been destroyed by a tremendous earthquake. The air stung Mikey's lungs, and they could see the destroyed nuclear power plants leaking radioactive material into the skies. When they finally arrived in Mongolia, Mikey was sick and was about to pass out. He swerved the car until it smashed into a tree, throwing his body to the ground outside, and when he opened his eyes again, he couldn't see. Now Mikey awakens to the sounds of a vast camp. Can't see, Mikey gasps softly. The voice of the warrior that captured him rides up.
Then you are fortunate that we take you to Chormong Noan, creature, for he sees all. Perhaps he will help you, if you are worth,
the warrior says, revealing his name to be Batu. So Mikey is brought to Chormong Noan, the elder of the Mongolian tribe. Noan asks Mikey what he seeks in Mongolia, and Mikey explains that he is hunting Deathworm, an enemy that I've sworn to defeat. I've chased across 3 countries, but now, something's wrong. My eyes. I'm blind, Mikey says. Noan nods, explaining that he is also blind, and he is also dealing with Deathworm. So they release Mikey, and they offer him tea. Noan reaches out his hands, feeling Mikey's face and sensing that he is a noble warrior. As the enemy of my enemy is my friend, I would invite you to join us as one of our Nokond, soldier and free man. Mikey is bewildered. But my eyes, he says. Noan shakes his head. Do not fret about that. I will show you how. So Mikey is brought into the tribe and is paired with Girl, a young girl who aids him in the tasks due to his sightlessness. As he becomes known throughout the tribe, Noan and Batu begin to train him without his sight. Mikey learns to see with his other senses, eventually becoming a skilled warrior even without his eyesight. For a time, Mikey knows peace. He has found a new family, a new clan. It's one day that Batu brings him to the weapons tent, explaining that Deathworm has raided the countryside villages, claiming that he is descended from Genghis Khan and that by right rules all of Mongolia. Batu shows him the captured firearms that Deathworm's thugs are using, but amongst the captured weapons, Mikey finds something else. tonfas with an electrical charge running through them. "Mind if I borrow these?" he asks with a smile as he wields the weapons, beginning to train with the powerful weapons as Geralt watches on. But eventually Mikey pulls her onto his horse. "All right, time for my swim." Mikey has learned to see with his other senses so strongly that occasionally he swims in the nearby lake so that he can block out everything. Beneath the dark waters, Mikey can hear only the spirits of his brothers, who compliments him on his training with the tonfas. But suddenly there is something else, and a sharp metal splashes into the water. "Wait, did you guys hear that? Is that freaking bullets?" the brothers shout, and only Mikey can hear them. Mikey comes out of the water in a fury just in time to sense Geralt has been struck by bullets. The young girl screams, falling to the ground, and Mikey charges up, slamming into the nearby thugs. Another tries to reload his rifle and turn it on Mikey, but the Ronin grabs the weapon, smashing it before throwing the thug to the ground. Then he is suddenly surrounded, and the thugs fire tasers at him, bringing him to the ground. The sharp barbs stab into his face, and electricity surges through his body as Mikey is screaming in pain and collapses. But there's a flicker in his eyes, and he could suddenly see his hand. My eyes! I could see!" he gasps. But a thug comes up behind him, cracking him across the head with a rifle. Mikey collapses to the ground, looking up, tears in his eyes as he sees his new home burning in the distance. And Geralt, dead a few feet away. Then nothing but darkness. We now go to current day, with Odin and Moja moving fast, taking out the two guards at the door and motioning for Yi to move forward and take out the lock. Uno is watching from the rear, but decides that his siblings are taking too long as he leaps down, smashing through the door, surprising everyone. They stand in the doorway and paintballs begin to fly out, hitting them all. "You're all dead," Casey says as she stands up. She steps forward, explaining to Uno that he has become too impatient, that she understood he thought that he could do everything himself, but he has to learn to put that ego aside and work as a team. Uno doesn't argue, bowing before her. "Yes, Sensei," he says. Back in the past, we continue with Mikey as he readies himself inside the cage, his body bruised as everyone cheers. The cheers get louder as the announcer begins to speak. "And so it has come to this, my friends, the grand finale, the fight to end all fights, a battle royale for the ages, the Turtle Tian. Last of the monsters, the spectacular Shaka, heroic human champion." Mikey looks across the blood-soaked arena at his friend, who is preparing himself for the battle. Then he looks up to see Abigail Finn, the leader and announcer of the blood sport. "Freedom to the victor! Death to the loser! Kill or be killed!" she bellows into her microphone. Shaka looks at Mikey and bows his head. "It's time, Michelangelo. We must see this through," he says, and Mikey thinks about how everything has led him to this point. He knows that his friend is right, and the two charge at each other. After being captured in Mongolia, Mikey had been placed into a truck. He was alone except for the spirits of those that he had failed. Finally, they stopped, and Mikey was pushed off the truck, finding himself in a large camp-like prison structure. That was when he met Finn. "Well, you're quite the specimen, aren't you? I thought there'd be more surprises for me when it came to your kind," Abigail Finn says, introducing herself. Mikey is led through the camp as doctors check his body and place small bombs in his neck. "Remotely activated, so if you're thinking about running away, think again. It'll be a short run, I promise." Mikey is then led to the rest of the prison, where he is thrown into the caged yard with the rest of the mutants. He barely makes eye contact with anyone, merely cutting into a ball near the fence line. Memories of everyone that he has failed filling his mind, but a voice calls out to him from the other side of the fence. "A bit of advice. Any weakness you show now will not be forgotten in the cage," Shaka says to him. Introducing himself, Mikey gets to his feet, shaking the human's hand. And with that done, Shaka motions to the camp, explaining that the humans and mutants are separated into two groups, but they both share a common purpose. They're being trained to fight, to give the ultimate show, with the final mutant and human being pitted against each other in the end. The bombs in their necks are there to stop any of the prisoners from escaping. "We live and train here, but not for much longer. Rumor is we're going to be moving west, with a final fight in Ukraine. Last human versus the last mutant. Battle for the big prize. Freedom. And freedom means I can hunt down and kill the real enemy." Mikey nods as he looks around. "Deathworm." "I hate this, Shaka," Mikey says quietly to his friend, and the warrior nods. You are not alone, my friend. That night, the two warriors rush at each other as Mikey grabs Shaka in a headlock. But the human twists, throwing him to the ground, and he reaches out, grabbing a hold of an axe. If these Scullies want to show us, give them one! He shouts as he swings the weapon, but Mikey manages to grab a mace off the ground, blocking the attack. As Shaka is pressing his own attack, Mikey looks up at his friend. Please, I can't do this, he gasps, but Shaka smiles at him. You don't have to. Just promise me one thing. When you get your pound of flesh, get some for me! Shaka says with a wink, and he suddenly pulls away, whirling, throwing the axe through the air. It flies out of the cage, slashing Finn across her arm. The boss yells in pain and anger, ordering her men to detonate the bomb in Shaka's neck. Mikey screams as his friend suddenly explodes before him, his smoking body hitting the ground. Michelangelo looks down at the body of Shaka in Finn's traveling gladiatorial arena. We have a winner! Finn shouts over her megaphone, and somebody walks over, grabbing Mikey's hand, throwing it in the air. You're champion! The Turtle Titan! She shouts, but the crowd isn't cheering. They're angry that they didn't get to see a final fight after Shaka tried to kill Finn, forcing her to blow up the bomb in his neck. Mikey grows angry, pulling away from the goon holding his hand and charging the goons, dragging Shaka from the arena. Let go of him! He growls as he kicks them away, and Mikey stares down at his friend, the rage boiling inside of him as he reaches for a fallen sword whirling on the crowd. Come on then! You want your money's worth? He snarls, lashing out with the blade, cutting off a person's ear. I'll give you your money's worth, all of you! He bellows, but Finn has ordered her guards to close in, tasers being fired, hitting Mikey in the head, dropping him to the ground. Later, Mikey awakens with a gasp, looking around to find Finn and her goons standing over him, a doctor reaching for his neck. Ah, there you are. I was starting to fret that the Shocker lads had juiced you up a bit too much this time, she says with a smile. The doctor reaches for him, but Mikey moves fast, grabbing the man's arm and twisting it around until he screams in pain. But Finn puts up her hands and tells Mikey to calm down. The good doctor's only trying to shut off those bombs in your neck. Your promised reward for being our newest champion. A win's a win and a promise is a promise, she tells him. Mikey pauses for a moment before releasing the doctor, letting him deactivate the bombs. The goons step forward, dropping Mikey's belongings on the table. Mikey pushes through his pack quickly, finding Splinter's old journal right where he left it. Once you're all dressed, you're free to go wherever you wish. Do what you want, Finn says as she prepares to leave, but Mikey grabs his sai, moving fast, wrapping an arm around her throat and pulling her close, the tip of the sai pushing against her neck. What I want is your boss, Mikey growls, and Finn pauses for a moment before bursting out laughing. Enough! Just tell me where he is or I'll kill you, Mikey growls in her ear, but Finn finally relents, telling the Ninja Turtle that the last they heard from Deathworm, he had set up shop in Italy. Mikey releases Finn, making his way out of the camp. Afterwards, they watch as the warrior departs, and Finn's goon question why they didn't just kill him, and Finn smiles. Oh, but we have killed him. The journey I sent him on, he's as good as dead, Finn says before returning to her life. And so the journey of the last Ronin begins. Michelangelo begins to make his way across the world, endlessly followed by memories and spirits of those that he failed in the past, but he ignores them all, even when his brothers begin to endlessly chatter. Eventually, he finds himself in Italy, tracking Deathworm's camp to the Roman gladiatorial Colosseum. The spirits of his brothers are impressed, and it is Leo that asks Mikey what the plan is. But Mikey has already begun to pull out his gear, wrapping a dark mask around his face. There you go with that stuff again, Leo. There's only one plan. Same plan we've had for the last 15 years. You three stand around running your mouths while I take care of business, Mikey says, slipping into the shadows and making his way to the Colosseum. A grappling hook allowing him to climb up the side where he looks down on Deathworm's training camp. Plans begin to form in Mikey's mind, but he grits his teeth as he remembers something that Raph said years ago. Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. Mikey draws one of Leo's katanas and a handful of smoke bombs, dropping the bombs into the camp and leaping down. The trainees are confused, coughing from the smoke as Mikey begins to move through them, slashing with his blades, demanding that Deathworm face him. His blades stab, taking the heads off of their killers until the smoke clears and a warrior stands before him. He's mine, the killer says in Mongolian as he pulls off his coat, and Mikey nods. Finally! The large warrior leaps at him, but Mikey manages to dodge the attack, slashing the man across the back. He gets back up, drawing Raph's side, throwing it, hoping to keep the warrior off balance. But the blade stabs the man that Mikey believed is Deathworm in his head. Wait, what?
Too easy,
he says with a shake of his head, but a voice sounds from behind him.
Yeah, it was,
the voice says as an attack hits Mikey in the head, knocking him to the ground where he is disarmed.
How many times did I tell Kuyag that charging in like a feral beast would be the end of him?
The voice says, and Mikey manages to turn, finding a thin, middle-aged man standing before him.
No way! You're Deathworm?
Mikey gasps, and the man smiles before whirling and cracking Mikey across the head with his staff, drawing blood that begins to run down his face.
Do not be deceived by my appearance.
Deathworm continues to press the attack, explaining that he knows Mikey is the monster that his men encountered in the mountains long ago.
And now here you are, after all these years, seeking vengeance for something I barely remember.
Deathworm laughs, picking Mikey's fallen sai up and whirling on the turtle, explaining that all life is meaningless.
That leaves only death, and here in my world, I am that death.
Deathworm says before throwing his sai, but Mikey moves fast, catching the blade. Deathworm nods.
Huh, so you're not as weakened as you appear.
He notes, drawing his own blade, ordering his men not to interfere with the battle. Mikey and Deathworm launch at each other, their short blades locking together as they trade blows. But Deathworm twists, lashing out at Michelangelo, knocking his sai aside and cutting him across the arm. He then charges again, but Mikey centers himself, blocking the blow, cracking Deathworm across the head. From his back, he draws the taser tonfas that he gained from the Mongolian tribe that had become his second family.
Do you remember these? They remember you.
Mikey snarls, pressing forward, bringing the tonfas together across Deathworm's head, the energy coursing through the man's body as he falls to the ground. Mikey whirls on the remaining thugs that worked for Deathworm.
Your boss is right.
He is dead. Anyone want to follow the leader? Mikey asks the group, but the men don't hesitate, turning to run away, leaving Mikey alone in the arena. He turns to leave, stopping to pick up the big warrior's coat, putting it on, and then he moves away from the city, arriving at the docks. Finally, having defeated Deathworm, he realizes that his mission of vengeance isn't over yet, and he slips aboard a tanker ship, settling in for the long journey back to New York. Hiroto Asaki is next. But in the current day, our new turtles are getting ready, as Casey's preparing her students the best that she can, and now she is ready to stand with them as they defend the city. And there you have it, today's full story. I hope you guys enjoyed, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell right here on this channel, as it will only ever be receiving full stories from the other channel. And if you want to see the videos as they come out, make sure you go check out the Comicstorian main channel, where you get 5 days of videos a week. I'll see you next time.